everybody. It is June 27th, 2025. I am Lisa Salberg, and I am with you today on Tales from the Heart, a podcast from the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association. And today I am joined by Dr. Steve Ommen. How are you today, Dr. Ommen?
Good. Happy Friday, everybody.
It's a good happy Friday. I just looked at my calendar and realized next week is July.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where June went this year. It was a little quick. Yep, moved pretty quickly. Okay, so last night, the HCMA hosted a webinar on the issues related to generic drug quality. And we encourage you all to go back and take a look at that. And we can drop a link for that in a minute. And we will be taking some inquiries from, or I should say, survey responses from individuals who've had experience with generic drugs that they've questioned. And we'd like to start organizing that information so we can address the problems at the appropriate level. So thanks to all of you who participated in that last night. And this month, our topic is exercise in HCM. It's June, it's getting hot all over the country. And we in the HCM community have a very mixed relationship with summer. We love it, but maybe we don't. We like summer nights better than we like hot summer days. So Dr. Ommen, why is it hard for patients with HCM to find as much balance in hot weather?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for HCM patients that have obstruction, whether it's outflow tract or mid-ventricular obstruction, hot, humid weather causes dilation of the blood vessels, which does two things that make the obstruction worse. So it causes the venous side of your blood system to contain more blood because they're more dilated, which means you have lower preload, which means there's less blood filling the heart before each heartbeat, so it's easier to obstruct. And the vasodilation of your skin, arteries, et cetera, to try to dissipate that heat causes decreased afterload, so it's easier to eject to emptying for each of those, in each heartbeat. And so that's why patients with HCM, particularly those with obstruction, have a harder time when it's hot and humid. Even for patients who don't have obstruction, though, we know that some patients with HCM have some dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is that part of our unconscious nervous system that controls blood pressure, pulse rate, sweating, all these kind of things. And so some patients with HCM just have an inherent, not quite normal function of that system, which makes them more prone to not sweating enough or sweating too much, which exacerbates that. And then, of course, some medications like beta blockers can also affect sweating reflexes and those kind of things. So that's why it's challenging for patients with HCM in hot, humid weather. And it's why exercise in the mornings or in the evenings and not in the middle of the day is going to be the best bet for success.
Thank you for that excellent clip that I know I'm going to steal and throw that one onto social media because that was a great explanation. Thanks, Steve. So let's talk about exercise. It is harder for some in the summer, and we want to be out and about. How do you find that balance? How do we keep exercising and keep notice of the temperature and the humidity?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So again, first of all, try to exercise during the cooler parts of the day. Hydration becomes even more important during the summer months, and probably a good idea to increase your water intake prior to starting exercise so that the tank is full, so to speak, before you exercise, and you're not playing catch up during the exercise. So talk about pre-hydration, maybe starting as much as a half an hour beforehand, just increasing your water intake and or electrolyte intake, as part of that so that you are well hydrated before you begin the exercise session.
So I'm going to go back to my Jersey Shore days of my youth. I always felt terrible on the beach. I hated it. You wanted to be there because it was a cool place to be, but it felt awful until I found Gatorade in the morning. And I would drink one bottle of Gatorade before I hit the beach. And all of a sudden the beach was fun again. And that's what I figured out, I think probably by the time I was 16 or 17. That was the way I regulated. I had no idea why I had to have Gatorade before I went to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
it all made sense.
Yep.
So
I do want to just talk about that for a second. So Gatorade is a great option, except for those of you who are maybe also worried about calorie intake. And regular Gatorade has
I wasn't worried at 16.
carbohydrate in it. Yeah, you were 16 at the time. So yeah, so it's a different ball game. You burn calories like they don't exist. But for those of us who are older and struggling with energy expenditure, look for those that have less carbohydrates in them or no carbohydrates in them if you're going to be using electrolyte solution, just to help manage that part of your healthy lifestyle.
So noted and correct. They didn't have Propel back then.
Didn't have
It was just the old orange Gatorade at that time. It was old school.
Yep.
Ugh, they've changed that a lot. That's a good thing. How much exercise should somebody with HCM be trying to get every week, let's say?
You know, the thing is we've evolved over the past half a dozen years to saying that HCM patients should get the same amount of exercise as people who don't have HCM. And if we can't get that much exercise, it means that we as provider teams need to help you with medication adjustments, et cetera, to make that happen. So it's the same sort of low to moderate intensity exercise for 30 to 60 minutes a day, essentially. There's lots of press, podcasts, social media presence about which exercises are the most important. Is it weight training? Is it endurance cardio? Is it high intensity? Is it sprint intervals? All those types of things. I think you should view those as that's what's the current data support. But like, is coffee good for you? Is wine good for you? Is X, Y, or Z good for you? This is the kind of thing that there seems to be these ebbs and flows of information. And probably the best exercise for anyone is the exercise that they will do, not the exercise they think about doing. So if walking is easier for you than lifting some weights, then walk, because that's what we want you to be active. And when you're doing cardio, I would expect you to be a little short of breath. If you're not having any increased work of breathing, you're probably not working hard enough to really make any fitness progress. It's not bad to go for a stroll, meander, saunter. That's very, tranquil, helps your mental health, gets you outside to enjoy that. That has mental health benefits, probably more than physical health benefits. But even that's better than sitting on the couch. So whatever exercise a patient can do, that's the best exercise for them.
I like that point of view, because we all know every 10 minutes there's some new thing that's going to make it all better in just a couple of weeks, and it doesn't tend to work out that way for most people. So just getting moving. So sometimes within HCM families, we have multiple generations who are impacted, and maybe the older generation who might have been diagnosed in the 80s or 90s were given information that's contrary to what we're saying today.
Yeah.
And it's a little hard to overcome a life that you were told, no, you're not allowed, you can't, you don't, to no, it's okay and you should. There's a bit of a culture shift. So interestingly, we've been hearing from multi-generation families that, grandma's really uncomfortable with grandchild doing X, Y, and Z because, they are at risk, or they are gene carriers, or they are already diagnosed children. So how do we make the generations understand the evolution of the understanding of where it came from and where it is?
Wow, I think you're asking for a societal solution here. If we
am asking
to this question, we wouldn't have the Gen Xers versus the millennials versus the baby boomers. So, information is obviously going to be the key to success here. I think that, let's put it this way, if you are of a different generation and you're seeing your kids or grandkids being told they can participate in it, scares you because you were told otherwise, the best thing to try to do is have a dialogue with the provider who gave the recommendation so you can learn how things have evolved. And just to kind of put it in broad strokes, the historic recommendations originally were that patients with HCM could not participate in competitive athletics. And that got extended by proxy to exercise in general. And there was no data to support no exercise in general. It just was done. And you can look at it this way. If we say that you can't exercise, then we know you're not going to die by exercise. Doesn't mean that death won't happen, but it's just not going to be during exercise. Mm-hmm. So it was erring on the side of safety, but it was erring on the side of safety with no information. With the data that we've had from research studies from the teams at University of Michigan with Lisa Salberg and Charlene Day when she was there, now at Penn, with the Rachel Lambert studies and the Mike Ackerman studies on looking at people who have chosen to be more active, including competitive athletics, the risk for a dangerous event with exercise is very low in HCM. It's probably higher than it is for people who don't have HCM, but our studies can't figure out how high that magnitude of risk is. So we're trying to rely more on data now rather than just say no as a strategy.
That is well put. I also want to highlight that in the rare events that there is a cardiac arrest from HCM, we have much better community response than we've ever had. Better AED placement, CPR knowledge. We have more knowledge to save somebody post-arrest than we ever did before. So those who do slip through the net and they do have their cardiac arrest, if they don't have an ICD, you got a higher likelihood of surviving in 2025 than you did in 1980. And it's not that, you can just have a cardiac arrest and just get over it. No, we don't want you to have the cardiac arrest, but it's really, really, really rare when you look at the total numbers of everything that happens to an HCM patient over a year.
Yeah.
And we need to keep that into context. We do have a couple of comments that I just want to bring into the conversation here. Warren, strange, sometimes I don't have symptoms when I walk, but after I walk, the symptoms come.
That's a great comment, Warren. So the mechanism there is probably that while you're exercising and your legs are constricting the veins and arteries and pushing the blood back to your heart, when you stop, particularly when it's hot and humid, and that vasodilation is still there to cool you off. So there's an instant drop in that preload I talked about before. And so you're likely to have symptoms afterwards. So that's where, drinking cool beverages, doing a cool down, not just stopping, those kind of things can help dissipate that to some degree.
And that sounds great. And unfortunately, one of our viewers went at it a little bit too hard in the sun and went into tachycardia and then AFib.
Yep.
I'm assuming we're converted out of that right now. Our best to you. That is an unfortunate thing that can happen with the weather. So let's talk in broad strokes here. Mm-hmm. If a patient does feel an exacerbation of symptoms after being out in the sun, is it a run to the emergency room? Is it a call to the doctor? Is it cool down on the couch? Is it a combination of all?
Yeah, it depends on the circumstances and the individual. So it sounds like, for instance, the question that Warren asked, it's something he's experienced before. So if he mitigates that, sits down, relaxes, puts his feet up, and things get better, then there's no need to go to the emergency department. He's managing that right way. But if the symptoms are worse than he's ever experienced before, they don't get better with those simple rehydration, get into a seated or recumbent position. If it's not getting better, or like what Gwen said, if your heart doesn't ever slow down because, gosh, maybe you're in atrial fibrillation that came on during exercise, that's a change in the pattern. That's something that's different from usual. That probably is more likely to warrant a trip to get healthcare now rather than waiting. But if it's just writing out your symptoms because today was a worse day, and as we've talked about before, obviously many of you experience symptoms that are present one day and not present other days. And so writing out the good and bad days, but what you're really looking for is the intensity way worse? Is the duration way worse? Is it not getting better with the things that usually make it better? Those would be the clues to go in and be seen.
Fantastic. You are all welcome to use the chat features in your social media platforms to ask any questions. and we'd be happy to address them if they're appropriate. But this is not doctor by podcast. These are just general questions and concepts.
Yep.
We cannot do a full consult. I know people are like, ooh, this could be fun. No. So good summer activities for people with HCM. I, later in life, found kayaking. I love my kayak. And I didn't think that was something that I could do with my HCM, but I think I was wrong. I started this after transplant, but I think I could have done it before, and I was just afraid of it. So what do you think about kayaking with HCM?
I think it's a good sport, again, in part because you are bent in half. You're seated, so you're not fully standing up, so it doesn't take as much blood pressure to keep the heart keep the blood to your heart. Some people, though, do have more symptoms when they use their upper body. So you've had many patients who have called into you, I know, who have said, why do I get short of breath when I'm washing my hair? And it's because using these muscles just requires, it makes you hold your ribs in a different way, so you don't get your breaths the right way and the same way. So when you're kayaking, you are holding your rib cage in a certain different balance, which changes your breathing pattern. So you may feel more short of breath doing an upper body exercise. If you get used to that and you can tolerate that, that's great. There's nothing inherently wrong or dangerous about kayaking for you. This applies to people who don't have HCM, but generally, if you're going to be out on the water, you probably should have someone with you or someone who knows where you are in case there is an accident and you're stuck in the middle of water, not feeling really well. So you need someone there to help you.
Absolutely. I would never kayak alone. I have a kayak buddy, so that's a good thing. He also happens to be my husband. All right. What other exercises might be good for people? And if you want to let us know from the audience as to what you're doing or what you want to do.
Yeah. So again, I mean, walking is the simplest exercise we can do. It requires no equipment other than a pair of shoes, and you can do that anywhere, when you're traveling, when you're not traveling. So it's the simplest one to have in your menu of options for exercise. Riding a bike is good, again, for the same reasons. You're not quite as standing up, but many people can jog or run. Swimming can be a great exercise for people, particularly in the hot weather, because you're automatically getting cooled while you're doing it. So, and there's the compression from the outside, which helps return that blood to the heart and minimizes the gradient. All of those things are great endurance type activities. We have, now again emerged, and we're encouraging strength training as part of a balanced exercise program for most people. That's not lifting weights where you have to grunt in order to lift the weights, but lower weights, higher repetitions, you can use resistance bands, cables, machines, any of those kind of things. You're going to want to do those indoors, again, just to avoid that heat and humidity. Going out to the famous beaches in California to pump iron on the beach is probably not the best idea.
I think that'd be a bad idea for pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have jazzercise and water aerobics.
Yeah, I think those are both great options. The water aerobics for the same thing. I mean, you're automatically getting cooled while you're standing in the water doing the water aerobics. It gives you the resistance, so you're helping maintain your muscle mass when you do those kind of exercises. And jazzercise is another great one. And if you can't do it to the same intensity one day versus the other, that's okay. You need to be kind to yourself and say, oh, today is not a great day, but I'm still going to my perceived effort level. It's not as much work as I did last week, but it's better. So do it and just listen to your body. So
we have some different exercises. We have some tips for getting hydrated to get out there. So I think we've kind of covered the exercise thing in the past, 8 or 10 podcasts, where we keep talking about how important it is for people to stay active. I want to now pivot to theme number 2 for the month of June, and that is kind of in the same area, being in the summer and exercising, but the balancing of work, health, and life. For some of us, life and health are actually 2 different pillars of our existence, which sounds a little bit strange, but managing your health is sometimes as time consuming mentally and physically as managing the rest of your life or your work life. So how do we find a balance between all these people that we each are?
Yeah. Again, you're like asking the existential questions today.
I
On the
know.
podcast.
I'm getting deep today, Steve.
Yeah. Join my.
Let's take it back a step. Why is it important, specifically for those with chronic illness? We're here in the HCM community, but
Yeah.
why is it important for us to find those balance points?
Just the word balance and the concept of balance says it all. I mean, chairs that only had two legs don't stand up. You need some balance in order to have a strong foundation of a happy, healthy life. And we all know the stories of people who worked to the exclusion of family time or physical activity time or downtime. We know the stories of people who exercise to excess, and that's all they do is they obsess about, are they getting enough exercise? Are they eating the right diet? And all they're doing is focusing on that. And it does seem that the people that have the most fulfilled lives are people who have multiple things that they are paying attention to throughout a week. And there isn't a magic number of X number of hours, A versus B versus C. Each of us is individual, but it's important to have diversity.
And diversity of community, diversity of activity, diversity of interest.
Yep.
Interest. But
you don't watch the same movie genre all the time. Sometimes you want to watch a comedy, and sometimes you want to watch a shoot 'em up, bang bang, and sometimes you want to watch a romance because you like variety in your entertainment. We need variety in our lives that keeps our brains more stimulated, and our again, that autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight system, chills it out by having diversity of interests and not laser focus always on one thing.
I think that is a great point. And I'll flip it into the HCM space in saying that the first 2 years of diagnosis, a lot of people live in the diagnosis that first 2 years.
Yep.
And it's their every thought, their every day, something bad will happen today because I now know I have this diagnosis. And when you explain to people it was there for a really long time and you didn't know it, and you didn't worry then, did you?
Yeah.
And they go, oh, well, but now I know. So what are your best tips for the newly diagnosed in that space?
It's a really hard time period because, if you've told you something you have wrong with your elbow, you worry about your elbow. It's a different thing when you're told you have something wrong with your brain or if you have something wrong with your heart. That is
kind of need that.
Knocks you to your core. And so many patients get a diagnosis that they were unaware of and then develop symptoms during that first 2 years because they are now paying attention to things going on in their chest that they used to just not even know were happening. And we do have an ability to feel things if we put our minds to it that we didn't feel before. And it makes sense. People are like, oh, I need to look out for something that might be dangerous to me. But it goes over the edge. We don't want you to ignore signs from your heart or body.
Yeah.
But if you focus on it too much, you can feel anything. You can feel every premature atrial contraction. You just feel your heart beat differently when you lay on your left side versus your right side. And it's hard. Each of us responds to that new information and that scare differently. That doesn't equate to crazy. The symptoms don't exist. The symptoms are real. The symptoms are there. The question is what's the physiology going on? And is it dangerous physiology? And we can figure that out. So again, I think talking to your doctor, talking to the HCMA, sharing the things you're feeling, but again, try to get out of your head about your HCM, because as we've said repeatedly, most people with HCM live a normal number of years doing normal activities and die from something else. So don't constantly look over your shoulder waiting for the bad thing to happen because you're going to run into something that you're not seeing in front of you.
So I'm going to just take a strange little pivot here, but there's a story. I've been doing this now for 30 years. The fact that I've been doing anything for 30 years is incredible because I'm only 35. Believe me, Steve? I don't think so.
Yep.
I am now to the point where people that were early members or clients of the HCMA are reaching the end of their natural life state.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them are in their 80s now, 85, 86. And I'll get a note that they've passed, and they don't pass from anything typically related to the heart. It's, it's a cancer, it's something else. And they've made it to their 80s, which is pretty damn good considering over 20 years ago, they were worried that their heart was going to take them out. And some of them were very high anxiety individuals who were just so dear to me because they were so scared, and you just had to hold their hands until they stopped being scared. And then they went on and they lived lives beyond that. And a lot of them just died from something else, old age, if you will, but not cardiac.
Yep.
And you're likely to stay around a while. I love when I talk to somebody who I talked to in the 90s. Ooh, way back then.
Yep.
And they're still doing well. I recently heard from Hartzell's first apical myectomy patient. And he didn't do that yesterday. That was a while back.
A while ago, yeah.
And he is spry as could be. So we live with our HCM. We don't live in fear of it.
Yep.
And if you are living in fear of it, give us a call. Let's get you some more education. Let's help you feel comfortable, which is a great segue to tell y'all about a project that we're starting to pull together. It is called Hearts and Minds, a mental health network. And we will be working with Dr. Sam Sears, a psychologist who is specialized in cardiac disease and device patients. I podcasted with them last Friday. Go pick that one up. And we are going to help credential therapists, psychologists in a mental health cardiac education module, and hopefully build a network of these individuals who've taken the training. So it makes it easier for individuals to find therapists who understand genetic heart disease. So cool project coming up. It'll take us probably another 9 to 10 months to get things rolling where you're going to see it on the front end. But we hear you. You need support. We all need support.
Yeah.
When you have a chronic medical condition, it'd be really nice to have the therapist at least have a base understanding of your disease state and some of the unique things that impact you and your families, which is why we kept looking around for somebody who knew how to do this. And we decided, let's talk to our friends about building it ourselves.
Yep.
So it is moving forward, and we are super excited about that. Okay. So, Stephanie, you had your diagnosis went along with AFib and HCM, and it was a real scare.
Absolutely.
And Warren, your comments, when the mechanic says it's your transmission, you hear everything he says after that. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a good analogy. Debater, you're working out 4 days a week for 2.5 miles. That's awesome. Keep it going. Bring a friend.
Yeah.
And remember that you have a community inside the HCMA, outside the HCMA, in your workplaces. Use all of those people in your life and get them to know the messaging about how good exercise is for you, how important it is to know your family heart health history. It's a comfortable conversation. And if somebody needs some help and guidance while you're taking a walk with them, there's a chance to do it. So I think we all need to be a little kinder as community and reach out and help our neighbors a little bit more in these really weird times we're living in. So take a walk with a friend, start a walking club in your community, do something that gets you connected. I think that would be a good message for all of us. Okay, Steve, what else do we need to know about exercise or balance, or what else is coming in HCM? We're doing potpourri today.
Yeah, I mean, so on that theme, I mean, for most of our patients, and it's not unique to HCM, but most of the patients we see in cardiology, we're encouraging them to start or restart exercise because most people in the U.S. are not meeting their recommended exercise goals. But there's a flip side too, and that is if you can't exercise on a given day for whatever reason it is, because you don't feel good, because you are on an airplane traveling to do something, because the work schedule is too much, don't freak out that you missed a day of exercise. You have to be kind and gentle to yourself about that. The exercise is a life duration activity that we're trying to, raise the tide of exercise for your whole life, and missing a single day is not a catastrophe. So don't add stress to your life. Like, oh, I didn't get to exercise today, I'm losing ground. One day of missed exercise doesn't equate to worse long-term outcomes. If you miss a day a week every week for 3 months, then we need to that's when you reevaluate, how do I change my schedule to accommodate this exercise or what's going on? But missing a single day, be kind to yourself. Most of you are not training to be in the Tour de France, or your physical performance on your exercise is not how you are defined. So again, be kind to yourself mentally and spiritually about missing exercise from time to time for good reasons.
Incredibly correct. And I have fallen into this cycle a couple of times in my life where I got very into exercise. Like it was 4 or 5 days a week. I was going to the gym all the time at night. It was just what I did. And then I stopped. Well, then COVID happened, and that's a whole other story. So I had to reimagine, like, okay, I'm not going to go to gyms because I'm immunosuppressed, and it just doesn't do me anymore. I used to love it. Now, no, too much sweat. So now I do my walks, and I have a routine in my backyard with my wall that I can do. And there's things that I found that I could replace it with. And frankly, it's a lot more peaceful because it's kind of solitude, and I don't get a lot of solitude. So for the periods of time that I can do this exercise, like nobody's talking to me, which is really nice.
Yep. Yeah, I prefer working out at home for those same reasons. There's no travel time, there's no planning or packing bags or those kind of things. But not everyone's like that. Some people need the motivation of the workout buddy, or I go to the gym, or I belong to this group. That's fine. Everyone has their own things. I just happen to prefer the solitude myself.
So I'm going to put this one up on the screen because she just gave me a little bit of chills here. So, Kay, I'm going to say your mom's name, Midge. Midge was a moderator on the HCMA's first message board, and she and I share a birthday, and she had a heart transplant. So if you have HCM and were born on August 9th, I can tell you what might be coming. No, only kidding. But her mom was a sweet, kind, compassionate. If she lived in another part of the country, there would be other words for her, but she was a tough girl. Like nothing knocked her down. And I was always so impressed with her. And I know she was a patient at Mayo as well. And I just think we have come a long way since Mom was moderating, and what we thought and where we are. And I wish you all good things, my friend, all good things. Okay. And then we have Peter. Breathing exercises 20 minutes a day help me. However, been doing exercise for half a day. I'm not sure if it's helpful. Breathing exercises.
Yeah, this is a great topic. Thank you for bringing it up. So intentional breathing, and there's all kinds of different breathing patterns you can do, from box breathing, which is, counting to 4 while breathing in, holding it for 4, breathing out to a count of 4, holding it for 4, breathing. That's called box breathing. There's some called intentional sigh, but there's all kinds of different breathing. And an intentional breathing practice where you just stop what you're doing. You could do it while you're walking, but you're not doing video games, or you're not, doing emails or any of those kind of things. There's pretty good data about how that does improve chronic stress if you do it regularly. Even if you only do it 5 minutes a day. Tapiter is taking it to another level, but even 5 minutes a day has been shown to decrease people's stress, anxiety levels, and adrenaline levels over time, which is all good for your body to have that happen. It fits in the realm of meditation, mindfulness, but there is something specifically about controlling your breathing that has this benefit. So, and everyone's got at least 5 minutes you can take to breathe mindfully that way. I don't know to the question or the comment that's kind of inferred there is, I don't know if there's if where the plateau is. I mean, how much time do you spend breathing? There are people that are way into this and do multiple sessions per day, such as the commenter here. I just don't know the data on, is it diminishing returns after X number of minutes per day? And again, that's probably something that varies by person, but it is a nice thing to add into a regimen. You can do it before bed. You can do it in the morning before you engage all those things that are going to ramp up your adrenaline system. Any of those times that, do it in the middle of the day to decrease your stress levels. So
I am very much into meditation lately. And to get into a meditative state, there are a whole bunch of different breathing techniques. And I don't always use the same ones. I turn them around as to how stressed I am or how mellow I'm trying to get and how long it lasts. But if I do that 3 to 4 times a week, it really does help level set and clear your mind and move on to the next thing and let that stress go. So I actually might take a deeper look into some of these other breathing techniques, and maybe we'll do a future podcast on them. It's a good idea. It's some of these concepts sound woo-woo, as I call it, like meditation. What the hell is that? It's not woo-woo. It's just taking a moment for yourself, not for the outside world. It's a moment for yourself to just be and just breathe. That's all you have to do. It is simple. It is a great stress reliever. And I think if you're seeing a quick trigger in yourself, you're getting agitated with a lot of things, or internally you're getting agitated, just take a few minutes, take a couple breaths. There's a reason why we say, whoa, take a breath. Yeah. Take a breath and you'll feel better. Ross really wants to know your summer activities. Ross is behind the scenes and he just keeps popping that one out there. So he wants to know a little bit more about it. Kay, you are very welcome. Your mom, damn, I miss her. Anyway. Okay, so Steve, we've got breathing, we've got temperature, we got hydration. We have community. Like, get out there and get involved with something outside of yourself. Helps you kind of balance. And if you can put that in with exercise, that's even better. Okay. I think we have covered a lot today. Is there anything else we want to dive into? We got a few more minutes. If anybody has any questions, now would be the time.
I would just reiterate something. So the things that you just mentioned that we covered today, absolutely appropriate for this group, but it's also appropriate for your family members who don't have HCM. All of those same concepts apply to every human being, having the balance, getting physical activity every day, taking moments for yourself. All of those things are important to everyone. There are just some unique challenges, particularly around the exercise part for the patients with HCM, particularly those with obstructive HCM, that you just have to be aware of in order to make you have more success and less discomfort while you're doing it.
I think we all need to take a little bit more time on ourselves, on our daily practices, and that sounds like spiritual, but it's not, how you wake up in the morning. Yep. How you prepare for your day, how you engage with the world, how you take your you time. Be intentional. This is coming from the girl who was on the edge of death. Heart transplant kind of brought me back, but it taught me some things too about what's important and what isn't, and where to take my time and energy and where not to. And things have been a lot better since then. I don't know if it's the heart or the mental status, but here we are. Okay, we do have a question before we wrap for today. Yep. So Linnell had a flutter ablation on 5. This is on the 5th of this month. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Had an ablation for AFib, and now it's extra challenging to exercise. 3 to 5 minutes has been the max. walking, marching in place, exercise, bike. Is this a tolerance issue or is this a cardiac issue that she should be discussing with her team?
Yeah, I mean, well, both. So first of all, just understand that after ablations for atrial fibrillation in particular, even though the rhythm may be normal sinus rhythm, it doesn't mean that the atria, they sometimes get stunned by the ablation, so they're not squeezing the way they should. And you're in that window, you're only 3 weeks in at most from the ablation, and it can take
This is October. In October.
Oh, in October. Okay.
She had the first one, and on the 5th of the month had the second. So a month, like almost 25 days ago.
Yeah. So 3 weeks ago, your atria may still be stunned. So you may not be having optimal cardiac performance that's not in your control. And so again, be gentle with that. Not specific to your situation here, but in general, if people tell me that the most they can do is 5 minutes at a time, that's fine. Let's do 5 minutes at a time. If it's 5 minutes, I'd probably say, can you maybe do one in the morning and one in the evening, and do that for a week or two, and then make it 6, and that for a week or two, and then make it 7. The rush to get to a half an hour of exercise time, if you tried to go from your 5 minutes now to 30 minutes tomorrow, you're going to write into Lisa and say, that was the worst advice I ever got. I'm miserable. I can't do it. I'm never going to exercise again. So take what you can and gradually progress it over time. Once you get up to about, so if you went from that 5 to 6 to 7, once you got up to 15 minutes, then you can start going to once a day sessions, to try to increase from there. So I would just be kind with yourself. You might still be in recovery from that ablation earlier this month, but take what you can do and gradually build.
I'll just add that there was an ablation, there was a recovery, there was an ablation. Mm-hmm. So you might be a little deconditioned on top of it, because since October, you've probably been a little concerned about exercising because you weren't feeling so well, and you probably weren't feeling great going into that either.
Right.
So I think you're doing great if you can hit that 5 minutes.
Yep.
And like Steve said, be kind to yourself. We have another question from Warren. Can obstruction come and go? Oh, that's a good one.
Absolutely. We have done studies that have shown that even within 15 minutes, people can show gradients and then not show gradients 15 minutes later. It is a very dynamic process that depends on humidity that we've talked about today, temperature that we've talked about today, how much you've had to eat and drink, how much sodium you've had, if you're having anxiety, what body position you're in. All these things change. The gradient isn't a fixed number. It changes throughout the course of the day in everyone with HCM, and some people quite dramatically so. And that's why some of you have good days and bad days. On the good days, your obstruction is minimized because some of those features were favorable, and on the bad days, most of those features were unfavorable for you, and you can't do as much. And that is one of the challenges for patients with HCM is you can't predict that typically. So, but yeah, the gradients come and go.
Okay, so debater, I love this one. Yes, don't forget it.
Menopause, absolutely. The vasomotor symptoms of menopause are going to make you feel worse if you have HCM, because those vasomotor, that's the vasodilation stuff I was talking about, makes your obstruction slightly worse, particularly during a hot flash. And even if you're not having a full-blown hot flash at the time, your blood vessel tone may be different and your obstruction may be slightly worse in those moments. So absolutely, menopause can be difficult for women with HCM.
I wish we had a better answer for that. And it is something that has actually come up a bit, is what is the right way to manage menopause and HCM? And I don't know that we actually have a good answer on that yet. So that's an area of potential research interest of HCMAs. We have a lot of women asking these questions, and I can just say it sucks. That's all I can answer on that one. And I don't have a good answer on how to make it better. So maybe with a little research and a little focus, we can figure it out. All right. Well, Dr. Ommen, I'm going to give you back 10 minutes of your day, because I know that is not something that often happens. But I'm going to do a little wrap up here. Hey, thanks for all the great insight today. I definitely think we're going to be pulling some clips that are going to get some really good traction on the Facebook group, and it's really going to help people understand the physiology of heat and exercise, and masterclass on that. So thank you. For those who joined us a little bit later, last night we held a webinar on the topic of generic drug quality. And there is a survey that is in this thread. Ross can maybe drop it again. If you've had any issues with a generic drug, if you had a period of time where you felt terrible and then you get another prescription and you're feeling back to well, we're trying to document how many people have had experiences with generic drugs that have changed the way they feel, increased side effects, symptoms, etc. It's a little difficult in HCM to always know what the root cause is of why I was feeling worse. But we have found that about 15% of generic drugs in the classes that we would take are substandard, and you never quite know which manufacturer you're going to get. So we're working on a project. Go watch the webinar from last night that will work through the federal government to provide information to buyers of large bulk drugs as to the quality of those drugs. It's a project being run by the Department of Defense. And it's pretty cool. It might be the only path that we have to ensuring that the drugs we're taking are consistent and trusted. There has been mercury in the drugs. There have been contaminants in the drugs, and they have been dissolution. How the molecule breaks up in your body has been wrong in about 15% of the generics that are coming in. This is metoprolol, we know, metformin, and tacrolimus are particularly problematic. So if you're taking any of these drugs and you notice a change in your symptoms, talk to your pharmacist and see which manufacturer it is. And then we can talk to you about what you might be able to do to document that situation so that we can make sure that the regulatory bodies are aware. Okay, so take the survey, let us know what's going on. This is just the starting point of that particular data collection. We also have a You Join campaign, which is a way for you to talk to your federal officials. That Ross, maybe you can grab the You Join link as well and drop it in here. And that's the ability for you to send a letter. You can send a video. You could edit the letter to your senator, congressman, governor, and state elected officials about this problem and bring it to their attention that you want them to be aware of it. So thank you so much for that. Conference last night, it was really, really masterclass level again. That's about all I got today. I'm going to actually be back on here in about a half an hour, and we're going to be talking pediatric cardiology with the Cleveland Clinic. So come meet somebody you've not met before, not in my podcast anyway. And let's see, who am I talking to? Let's get on the right calendar day. And then I can actually announce who it is while Ross finds out. No, that's the 4th. This is the 27th. Oh, it's 4th of July next weekend too, isn't it? So we have to, that's you, and that's him. Yes. So we have Dr. Jeffrey Bennett from the Cleveland Clinic. Sorry, I forgot his name for a second, but I won't forget it in a little bit. Okay, there's your getting involved. You Join link. Please take a minute to take a look at that, and please send to your elected officials, and we appreciate that. Steve, thanks for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of the summer of Claire, and enjoy all that comes ahead.
Yeah, happy 4th of July.
And happy 4th to all.
The Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association would like to thank our sponsors, Cytokinetics, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Edgewise Therapeutics.